3.1 and 12.1.
Okay, I thought they tried to correct this too.
Yeah, they did on that one. Yes, sir, they did.
Then they changed, when they changed some stuff, and now they're gonna, I have questions, now they're gonna vote on it on the 7th. Are we supposed to do anything with it?
No, we approved it as is, and they, in their speaking, at their discussion, they wanted to change it a little bit, so they did. And so, you know, our vote's already done with it.
Why didn't they just go on and change? I mean,
Yeah. Well, it was just their discussion meeting, it wasn't their voting meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Bruce.
All right, y'all are in the midst of
No,
How are you, sir?
heavy debate.
Likewise, thank you for asking.
But if anybody needs them, I got those copies. I know they're in your packet, but Christopher was wanting to make sure everybody has that.
Okay, tell me that again now, I kinda lost it.
That's okay. It's about section 6.9 that we're adding to the ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's the division of property.
Yeah.
And it also affects the definition, which is in 3.0 or 3.1. And then they had a little housekeeping in section 12.1 with zoning administrator, and they just struck out all plats representing new parcel divisions or splits must be approved.
Is that agenda item 2, 1?
Yes, it's old business, agenda item 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So we're just discussing it
Agenda
tonight.
item 1, 2, and 3?
For old business, under old business.
Yeah. Now, this is, make sure before we get it, this is proposed, that we're supposed to discuss it
Yes, sir.
and make our recommendation?
Yes, sir. We won't vote tonight, we're just discussing it.
Hey, Tracy, I got a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I just got asked here. A little question right now. This is gonna be voted on by the Board of Commissioners on stuff.
Yes, sir.
So next.
Where's your bride been riding lately?
Now, one of the things here that we're running is,
Did you?
Today would be a
2, 1, 2, and 3.
Commission.
motorcycle person. It is a, this time of year,
We're starting stuff.
weather
His agent or attorney.
is,
Now, does that preclude one of those
absolutely nice.
members
Rolled
of the
over
planning
down,
and zoning
rolled over
commission
in after that.
offering a condition? Because it seems to say the only one that can offer that condition is staff.
Mornings in the
Um,
upper sixties and days in the seventies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, I often ponder, if we're
You
gonna
haven't
have
voted yet?
12
I'm not
months
sure
a year of
that's
that,
exactly the language.
I think I probably could get the school.
Right.
There's enough, a little bit of cold that
Maybe
we
when the
get,
attorneys come.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know,
but it makes me
I know the only
appreciate
change
the
was he just
in-between
changed
so much
that
more.
for planning zone staff, so that was already in there.
I called today, I gotta
I'll
give
have
him a headshot.
to check on that.
Season cards, because about the time you get tired of
It's
cold
not
weather, then
earth
spring.
shattering, because I.
News
We're
on
gonna do it.
Right,
All of them, they haven't been bad, but like,
Yeah.
this matters how these words, and they want to picture that, they want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Come out where,
The counselor comes in and that,
Okay, I think you should be here.
He gets reached out, it's going for it.
I thought you did have them.
Beautiful.
Somebody,
I
other
agree.
people got them, but I called, I'm sending them one, could use some money.
Yes,
Golly. So that's.
I almost forgot we had a meeting.
yes.
You did.
Thursday,
I just pulled up on my drive.
there's a little chance, isn't
I
it?
never
Next,
was asking about the calendar, I think next weekend. and I showed him my.
this
calendar.
weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Little
yeah.
chance.
Come on now.
I was thinking it was next week. But the first came so quick.
Mm-hmm. We ready, Mr. Tracy?
We are.
We are, 6 o'clock. All right. Call this meeting to order, if you would, just normal word prayer, as we normally do, and we will get started. Eternal God, our Father, the maker of all things, the ruler of all things, is once again that we're bowed in our presence, thanking Thee for all the good and perfect gift Thou bestowed upon us. Our Father, we thank You for life, we thank You for health, we thank You for strength. Thank You for giving us the opportunity to meet together and to try to do a job to make recommendations for our county. Now, Father, we know that You are the maker and the sustainer of all things. Lead us and guide us as we try to do the business of the county. And we'll be so careful to give You all the glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Okay, November the 1st, 2022. I believe it's 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody to our business meeting. And at this point, let everybody kind of introduce themselves and the area that they represent. Mr. Gandy?
Good evening, Bruce Gandy, District 5.
Cynthia Fortson, he is the appointee.
Jennifer Bradley, District 1.
Canola Scott, Chair, appointed by the Chair of the County Commissioner.
Lee Mitchell, District 2.
And William Smith, District 4.
Okay. Couple of announcements before we get started. I just mentioned to William that his term is up on the end of December, and I will be contacting his commissioner to let him do his job to appoint, reappoint, or whatever. Also, at our December meeting, we will be electing a chair for the upcoming year. We'll be thinking about
So what meeting is that?
December.
December, okay.
The elected chair for the next coming year. All right, approval of minutes from, I think, everybody got their package?
Yeah.
Of, the minutes for October 4th, a regular business meeting, and minutes for October 18th, our public hearing meeting. Any discussion, or I get a motion to approve those minutes, or you want a few minutes to have a look over again?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A motion by Lee,
Second.
second by Cynthia. Any discussion? Bruce?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Oh, yes. I
Yes.
thought he had
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
Thought you were discussing something.
We approved. All right, we'll move to item number 2, is the old business. Tracy, you want to take over from here and tell us what we got?
Okay, this is to discuss amending the zoning ordinance in section 6 to add an additional section, which will be 6.9, and sections 3.1 under definitions, and section 12.1 under zoning administrator that address the proposed amendment for the division of property. And the first will be to add the section 6.9, addressing the division of property, and I've included those in your packet, the proposed addition.
Okay, 6.9.1.
Yes, sir.
sorry, I thought you had, Mike, when we talked earlier, the changes.
The two resolutions that I had drawn up and sent to Christopher.
Sent to you a couple of these.
Okay, we have a problem here before we start our discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta get the right thing in front of you to discuss.
Oh, okay, we got the wrong thing.
That one.
Well,
I'll be back. Go, if it's all right with the chairman, go to new business and I'll print all this up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I'm gonna go.
All right.
I apologize for that, I didn't see
okay,
that.
so we need to move into something else and then come back to that?
Yes,
Ms.
yes.
Patrick, before we leave that, on this section 6.9, division of property, that very first sentence there,
Mm-hmm.
is that actually, do you mean to say in that first sentence, form or from? I think it's from.
We've got totally different,
Oh,
completely
So
different
we-
than what's in front of you.
okay, right, I will.
Okay. What was,
Reserve my query.
Hold your proofreading skills, please.
So we need to
okay.
get rid of that whole section?
Well, not yet.
Whenever he comes back,
Oh, okay.
whenever he comes back.
One day next week, or maybe the week before, I don't remember. I just sent it to Christopher.
Okay,
Somehow I missed that.
all right, that's okay. Let's move into new business. First, if you would, Wesley Bridges, number 1.
Yes, sir.
One and, I guess we can take 1 and 2 together.
Okay, all right. Excuse me. Well, it concerns 2 tracts of land, but it is owned by Wesley Bridges. The first one is to rezone his 2.75 acre property from A1 to AR to bring the non-conforming property into compliance with zoning regulations by combining it with his 1.5 acre adjoining property, that is map 11, parcel 95A, for a total of 4.25 acres. The property is located at 441 McGee Fitzpatrick Road in Danielsville on map 11, parcel 95, and it's in District 1. And then the second request for this is Wesley Bridges requesting to rezone his 1.5 acre property from A1 to AR to bring into conformity with zoning regulations by combining it with his 2.75 acre adjoining property, which we mentioned above, 1195 is the mountain parcel, for a total of 4.25 acres. Property is located at 477 McGee Fitzpatrick Road on map 11, parcel 95A in District 1. And what this was about is he is trying to just give his son some land. And the reason both parcels were mentioned is part of Wesley's workshop is on the other part that he's wanting to give his son. So they were trying to switch property lines, moving them around a little bit. So that's why they both were asked to be, you know, changed to AR.
Okay, so he's joining them now, he's gonna come back later and cut out something for his son?
Yes, he is. He's just bringing it into conformity now, and then we'll cut it out.
Any other discussion on this one, or anything look out of ordinary? Everything looks kind of straightforward to me on these 2.
sorry, Ms. Patrick, when you mentioned he has a shop there, what sort of shop is it?
It's just a personal, shop that's been there for years.
At this point, we're not talking about any division, we're just talking about combining.
Yes, sir.
That may come into effect once he starts trying to separate. Any other comments or concerns? If not, we'll move on to Mr. Whitfield.
Okay. Next up is Mark Whitfield, and he is requesting to rezone a 2-acre portion of his 5-acre tract from A2 to AR to cut off and sell with existing homes. The remaining 3 acres will be combined with his adjoining A2 property, which is map 12-167-01, for a total of 14.78 acres, where he plans to build a home. This will also bring the property into compliance with zoning regulations. The property is located at 1399 East Commerce Road on map 12, parcel 167 in District 1. And if you'll remember, back in March of this year, 2022, he had made application for this, but decided to withdraw it. And so now he's got a home that's very close to the road, and he's just tired of the noise and living in it. So he's just wanting to cut off the 2 acres, and then that remaining 3 acres, he's gonna put it with his adjoining pasture land, where he's gonna build a home on it as well.
Was there a reason he withdrew? Anything out of usual why he withdrew?
You know, I asked him about it, and he just said he just had changed his mind for a moment, and then he's wanting to do it again, so it really wasn't a substantial reason.
Oh.
I remember that very well. He didn't have a reason.
No.
But it's pretty much
I
the
know
same,
that.
pretty much the same action now as he wanted back then.
It is.
Any questions, any concerns about that one?
I got one.
Okay, let's go to number 4.
Okay, number 4, is for Robert Armour, and he is being represented by his attorney Eric Eberhardt, and he is requesting to rezone his 17.97-acre property from A1 to AR to allow the property to be split into 2 tracts, one containing 15 acres and the other 2.97 acres. The property is located on Leon Ellis Road on map 16, parcel 64 in District 1, and that's application 1 of 2. And, are you wanting to do this the same as you did?
Yes, ma'am, I
Mr.
think we
Chairman.
can do that.
Okay, and then the second part of the application is requesting to rezone his 46.14-acre property from A1 to A2 to allow the property to be split into 2 tracts, one containing 36.13 acres and the other 10.1 acres. The property is located on Leon Ellis Road / East Commerce Road. It's a corner lot on map 16, parcel 6402 in District 1. And to kind of explain this, Gary Armour is actually the one pushing for this rezone. However, it's his brother Robert's property, and it's having to do with some inheritance of land. Mr. Gary Armour is wanting to purchase this land from his brother, and his brother gave him the go-ahead. Yes, he wants to sell it, but in order to do that, we've got to rezone the parcels, and Mr. Armour didn't want to represent it, and he didn't want his brother Gary to represent it, so he hired his own attorney to represent.
So, is there a real is my land and I wanna do this, is there any real reason to, I mean, I guess they know.
Yes, sir. Mr. Armour is very, persistent in wanting to get as much land as he can, you know, to keep the property that was in the family and keep it there. So that is his sole purpose in doing that.
Okay. Gentlemen, ladies? What am I hearing?
On the 17.97 acre that's wanting to be split into 15.63 and 2.34. The 2.34, I can understand that going to AR. The 15.63 is wanting that AR as well? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why he doesn't want that to go to A2, since it's over 10 acres? You know?
I think that he is wanting to keep it that way for maybe a future division for his son. He just wanted it all on the same thing, was my understanding.
And then on the 46.14 acre on the other side of the road being split into 36 and 10. Let's see if I'm sure. Tell me again what he's wanting those to go to.
A2, that would go both going to
Both
A2.
A2.
Yes, sir.
From A1 to A2.
Mm-hmm.
That works. Yeah.
Those will be the larger tracts.
15.
And the 36 acre could be A1, but he wants it A2.
He said he didn't plan on doing any kind of farming, as, you know, poultry houses and that type thing, and he just wanted it to be A2.
Any other questions on that? Any additional questions? Concerns? Well, if not, we'll go back to old business. One, I haven't seen this, and I don't think any of them have, so we'll just give y'all a moment to take a look at it and figure out what you're looking at.
Would you like me to give a little overview? Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir, that
while you have
would be very enlightening.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this into resolution or ordinance form. So what you've got is a two-page one, three-page one actually is the bigger one. That's the amendment to the zoning ordinance. The smaller one is amendment to subdivision regs, and subdivision regs would just need to be amended to make them consistent with proposed changes in the zoning ordinance, because this is all about major and minor subdivisions and parent parcels and that sort of thing. So, so items 1 and 2 and 3 on your zoning ordinance, one of the longer one, are getting your definitions consistent, and also introducing this idea of an intermediate subdivision. So right now, we just have major subdivisions that are covered by the subdivision regs, and minor subdivisions that are not covered by the subdivision regs. This introduces the idea of an intermediate subdivision, and that's over on the next page. And so, let's see.
It hits everything in the right place.
Yeah, gets everything in the right place. So I suggested instead of doing it 6.9 to put it, make it 4.7. We actually, I've never noticed this before, we have two sections of the zoning ordinance with the same title, 4 and 6. So, but just looking at it, this new 4.7 is just this is some general stuff that we should have had all along, and it's sort of been implied and sort of fallen under that last sentence of section 12.1, but it's a lot more spelled out here, basically saying you can't subdivide property in Madison County without complying with our zoning ordinance and subdivision regs if they apply, period. And you can't get around it by trying to do a deed and not a plat. It actually says that so this is from Oconee County's, 4.72 actually says you have to do a plat, you can't just do a deed. And then 473 is another one that we run into from time to time, and I have to explain verbally. This would put it in the ordinance saying we don't enforce private covenants. That's between private property owners. Let's see, 822 is, I think Christopher, this is what, I just changed the format, but Christopher had this already. So, you remember we struggled with this, how much road frontage is required, I think, on Mr. Briggs' rezone. And actually, so this just gives us a flat requirement. You gotta have minimum road frontage of 150 feet. And then, let's see, the next one, item 6, is getting rid of this sentence at the end of 12.1 that was kind of out of place, because now it's all addressed much more comprehensively in this new 4.7.
Closing loopholes, good old boy.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is intermediate subdivision already in the,
No, that's
Isn't
a whole new concept.
all right,
And so here's how it
explain
plays.
that to me, please.
Yes, sir, and so now I gotta go to the subdivision regs, because, so an intermediate subdivision would be, so right now it's a major subdivision, and we changed that too, didn't we, Christopher? So now it's a major subdivision, is subdivision of a parent parcel where you're creating 6 or more total lots, initial lot plus 5 units within a 5-year period. Right now it's 40 lots within a 3-year period. Okay. So that puts the goalpost out there a little further on what's a major subdivision, but we have this intermediate subdivision that is subdivision of a parent parcel where you're creating either 2 or 3, or 1 or 2 new lots, so 2 or 3 total lots. So where that plays in is if you choose to do an intermediate subdivision, then on your subdivision regs, you will see that we're adding a definition to what is a major subdivision. So this is on the shorter ordinance. And we have A, B, C on the definitions of major subdivision. So A is the same as it's always been. B is changing it again. Now it's 6 total lots within 5 years. And C is if you do any further subdivision of an intermediate within 5 years. So that expands it out a little bit longer.
To where we don't have these phase 2s, 3s, 4s, and today is phase 5 that nobody knew about.
Right. So now,
So you're getting rid of those phases.
Yeah.
And where you're the minor
Mm-hmm.
parent. So, okay, if I come in here and build, like you're telling me, a whole new street, I gotta put streets and everything, that's my major subdivision.
Yeah, that's always been a major.
Okay, so now I'm coming back, I have extra land, I wanna put 6 more, that's my minor.
No,
Instead
they'd
of
be in
phase-
addition to,
Huh?
they'd be in addition to 6 parcels, instead of having a phase 2,
Yeah.
let's think about the reserve, the one off of Rogers Mill that's going on right now, where they came in, they built, I can't remember, 45 or 55, more than a baker's dozen of houses,
Right.
And then they waited an extra amount of time and then tagged on phase 2 underneath the old ordinances.
Right.
What this is saying is, once you finish that one major subdivision, if you add on to it in a second phase, and it's further out than 5 years, you've gotta come in and replat everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So if I stop myself, I completed major,
Mhm.
now I have some extra lots,
Mhm.
and now I wanna add that on to my major. And you're calling it, minor,
So that's an intermediate.
intermediate.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a new major subdivision now, because you're tacking,
Yeah.
before you may have just done it as
Yeah.
an intermediate or have
Right.
these, but now, any changes throw you right back into major subdivision.
Okay, so I'm not doing phase 2 anymore.
In other words, you're cutting out the phases, they gotta
Yeah.
be doing this, say, a 5-year period.
That's
If
what
they
they,
want to expand with that plat to start with,
They're doing,
to do it within the 5-year period. If we wait that 5 years, they gotta get another plat.
a whole new process.
so they're doing separate subdivisions now.
Mhm.
Oh, so they can't, okay.
Yeah.
They can't do it unless it's, they can't do it after 5 years.
Yeah.
Up to 5 years, they can go in and do it.
Okay, but after
As
5
is
years,
right now.
it's a totally new subdivision. Now it's called, intermediate.
If you, look out around Chateau Alon, it's become a big issue as we see sprawl coming down the 85 corridor, where, LGI is one of them. And they build good houses, please don't think I'm picking on them, but they'll buy a 500 or 600 acre tract, they'll put 100 homes in it.
Right.
Then once they get their money back in, and it may be 12 years, they come back in, they'll add another 100 homes, and it's all coming off that original one. They haven't had to go back in, check things, bring things up to the standard, or the new codes as they expand on through. This would keep any of the major developments and, the additions to some of our subdivisions in check, to where it's no longer a question, do we have to honor what the, ordinance said in 1999, before we ever thought about fiber optics, and burying it, and then it, 4-inch water line was acceptable, and now 6 inches is minimal. They have to come in and make sure that for that additional, that it meets the current regs.
Okay, so that's the reason for doing this, for them to keep up with the current ordinance, current ordinance that are.
Yes.
Now that I'm looking at this, Trish,
Now,
do we mean to leave, this may have been my doing, why would we have this gap between, so a major subdivision is a total, it's 5 new lots.
Mhm.
Shouldn't an intermediate be 2 to 4 new lots instead of 2 to 3?
Should be 2 to 4.
2 to 4, I think, I got a typo,
there a
that's
typo?
that's my bad.
It was on the original that, when I was out. That
Yeah,
was there, it was on the original.
yeah.
so
Back.
why is there even a parent? I'm not understanding the parent.
Because whenever you come in to split, say that big 500 acre tract that they're putting 100 homes on,
Yeah.
there's always gonna be that one parcel
Yeah,
that everything started from, and that number can never go away. So, say lot 1 was that parent parcel number, and then number 2, number 3, number 4, moving forward.
but I'm saying the parent is only if you have, 1 or more lots. So if you have 1 lot,
Mhm. Talking about creating one new parcel of record.
that's what I'm reading here, I think.
Yeah, so the intent here, and my intermediate, I see my numbers are off in intermediate, but, so if you start with the parent parcel, if you just wanna split it in 2, that's a minor subdivision, you don't have to worry about anything, just meet your preliminary plat requirements. If you wanna split it into 3, but, 3 total lots, but less than 6 total lots, now you're an intermediate subdivision. You do anything else to that within a 5-year period, it's gonna kick you into major. And if you do 6 lots now, within a 5-year period, it's major to start with.
What we have an abundance of in the county is a developer will come in, say on a 20 acre tract, and they will cut off 2 parcels. So they've got the original
Right.
and 2 more, and they'll build 2 homes. And then in the 3-year period, they'll wait, they get their money back in, then they'll come back in 3 years and split 2 more times. And then they'll build it, and they'll wait 3 years, and they'll build more time, and we have all these private roads throughout the county
Yeah.
that we're creating that do not meet the county's, road standards, if you will, or, they're influxing in in some areas, into the EMS and the fire response, but so many houses close together that they need to take on another pump truck, or they may need a brush truck to fulfill that, and they're sliding in underneath the radar by doing it every 3 years, by making them stretch it out, with interest rates coming in, taking that into account when they refinance and on the market now. And with the splits, if they were to keep doing that, they then have to bring it up to major subdivision standards instead of it costing every taxpayer in the entire county money to pave those roads and be on the development.
Something
But, I
else
mean-
that for long term, it's not in this one, but, once you get through this initial phase, a lot of counties have some requirements for sort of these in-between small, what I'm calling intermediate subdivisions.
Mm-hmm.
So you may wanna bolster this with some much more condensed, less onerous version of the major subdivision requirements for the intermediate subdivisions. Right now, we're just sort of creating the category and tying it to a time limit. At some point, you probably wanna do that.
Yeah, so if we create the intermediate, what this does, it sets the skeleton up, and then we create the intermediate meat, if you will, what they have to follow, but before we create the meat, we wanna make sure that everybody's on the same page with the creation of the intermediate and the understanding that if you create an intermediate and you come in within 5 years and you add to it, you just made a major subdivision, and you qualify for having to do that curb and gutter, for having to bring the roads in, for having to make sure the utilities are in place as you go through there, so these sneaky peeps, they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
Okay, well, what I'm looking at is when you come in, you're gonna put those model homes, the 2 or 3 model homes. Okay, if you got 100, it's gonna probably take you maybe a year to 2 years to complete that subdivision.
On
Depends
average, it's
on
3
the-
years right now.
Yeah, depending on the price of housing and everything, so.
Yeah.
But my thing is this parent parcel, you saying one, if they have one or more.
Yeah,
So-
parent parcel just means a parcel that you're splitting, that's all it means.
Yeah, but I mean, usually, how many, what is our acreage, 5?
For what?
No,
What area?
for a home in the rural,
If you are in R1,
yeah,
on your own septic, it's an acre and a half.
acre and a half.
You know, our parent parcel definition now is tied to the maps as they existed at some point in time. I mean, I'm just speaking candidly here. I mean, other counties do it that way. Our problem is, our maps aren't accurate.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we already have, so this parent parcel makes, I mean, I
What we
prefer to
had
you,
on
Christopher,
record.
but to sort of have it as this rolling 5-year period,
Yeah.
you know, you don't deal with the mistakes of the past so much.
Exactly. Exactly. We hold to that parent parcel where it doesn't get lost in translation, so if they bring 3 parcels in, say they did 3 parcels, one of those is the original.
Right.
Holds that original number. And so if you look like on a map book, say, I'm pulling numbers out of here, so if somebody's online and thinks I'm posing at them, but just say it's 0001, map parcel 001.
Right.
That second parcel will be all those 001, 0001, 001, 01. And then the next one will be all those, and then 02 and 03. So when we come in and we say you're trying to add a 04, 05, 06, in that time frame, we catch the major subdivisions that was set through.
Question here about that 06. In this original thing that Treasury gave us, why did we change it from 5 to 6?
5 parcels in Madison County is the average going for what it used to be to start a subdivision. Subdivisions now that, outside of Madison County that create not parent parcel, sorry. I'm hung up on saying parent parcel. That constitute major subdivisions for the most part are 10 or more homes. So Madison County was very low on that, especially compared to Oconee County, Banks County, and moving up into Hall County. This kind of brings us more into trying to get LGI and show them we're wanting to do more than more than 5. So this is trying to entice the ones that want to build those larger subdivisions to let them know they can come in with those larger numbers beforehand. And then with the minor ones, when we come in, most of the splits that we see are 4 to 5 for families in Madison County. The parents keep it, and they have 2 children, 2 grandchildren, things like that, and that's how we're losing a lot of these larger parcels, say a 200-acre parcel. Mom and Pop keep 25, they give 50 to each child, and then, like 25 to the grandchildren. We're seeing that, and there's no need for them to have to fall underneath a major subdivision.
Right.
But the major line in the county is that 5th parcel right now. So by offering that intermediate and making the major subdivisions where you have to fit in roads and everything go to 6 helps our citizens.
So if somebody wants to come in and build just 4 lots, would that fall under subdivision or what?
The intermediate.
Intermediate, they still have to have the street.
They'd still come in, when we create the regs, they'd still have to come in before the board, and then the board would have the discretion at that point.
No, right now, I mean, the way it's written now, the intermediate still doesn't have any requirements.
Yeah, we
as far
have
as streets or infrastructure or
Because when
anything.
you have the
Right now, all we're doing with it is, the only ramification of it now is that if you do any more with it, it's gonna kick you into major subdivision status. Now, yeah, I think you want to have, not require as much as you do for major subdivisions, but have some requirements for your intermediate. I was looking it up here, I think Oconee County does it at 5 lots, they have something they call a 5-lot split.
Yeah, it's a 5-lot split, and then once you go over 6, you're into the major.
Yeah,
So
and they have
5
some
lots.
lesser requirements for the 5, for the, what I call an intermediate, what they call a 5-lot split, so, but we don't have that yet, but.
I know we're getting in that direction. Oconee, Newton, Banks, and Jackson all have that 5.
They all have the 5?
Yeah. Or it might not be
Or
phrased
some-
the exact same as
Okay,
Oconee
but something
County.
like that.
Yeah.
Didn't we have a rezone not long ago that where they wanted to build 4 houses and we had that, and that was all it was gonna build was 4,
Mhm.
and it had to be a subdivision regs.
Yeah, and that's what the condition
Is that what we're trying to get away from, a major subdivision or intermediate?
Intermediate, we're looking at the needs of our citizens in the county with where we want to go with. So the major hits at 6. Less opens up for the family, but with the intermediate and creating a new set of regs.
Yeah.
So through that 5-way
A small
split,
set of rigs, yeah.
could allow it to come in just because you build 4 houses on, let's say 25 acres, or 5 houses on 25 acres and they're 5-acre lots, doesn't mean that they necessarily need curb and gutter. I'm tongue-tied, I apologize. Curb and gutter, coming in, but it may mean that, yes, they need to bring their roads into compliance, or build them to county spec. But it gives that wiggle room for the county to be able to work with the citizen.
Okay, well, that's what I'm concerned, cause you kind of put the regular family in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not gonna be under, like, if I wanna give my 5 kids, split my land up and give my 5 kids, house, enough acreage to put their house on.
Mhm.
Are you putting me in that subdivision?
You're already in
You're already
there.
The way it sits right now, you're already in it. You're already in a
So
major.
that means I have to bring you a plat and
If you,
roadage and all that.
yeah, if right now you did it 5 times, you'd be in a major subdivision.
But I'm saying my family, I'm usually not gonna put a road in there, I'm gonna put some, gravel to go to each, you know how a family is.
And then, what we're catching now, like that's the intent, and then 3 children sell out, and now we have, say you live on it, and one of your descendants, are on it, then you've got 3 neighbors, and the 3 neighbors start coming to the BOC, why haven't you paved our road?
Yeah, zoning can't be dependent on who owns it or how they're related, because you can't restrict, we can't, the law doesn't require what's called restraints on alienation. We can't tell people they can't sell their land.
Right,
So-
that's what I'm saying, you can't tell them that, but you're making them,
If you
Apply
split it
to a
that many times,
subdivision.
then you're gonna have to pave your own road.
I know, but you making them apply to be in a subdivision.
Right now, it has to meet that point.
It sounds like to me this intermediate subdivision thing is incomplete.
Exactly, that's what I said, we have to all agree that there's a need for it on the skeleton, and then we build the meat onto it. It's a creation process.
So what we're doing, so our job is to recommend establishing an intermediate subdivision.
Correct.
Is that right?
Subdivision or division parcel, what, how do you say it? Division of property.
Intermediate subdivision, yeah, and, yeah, I mean, it does have some teeth in that, it cuts out people, you know, just doing it every 3 years and never hitting major subdivision requirements. That's at least extended out to 5, and anything that happens there within that 5-year period, even if it's just one new lot, it's gonna kick into major subdivision requirements. So it's gonna slow down some of the gameplay.
Let's say like Miss Cynthia, for instance, splits and gives it to 2 children.
Yeah.
5 years goes along, their children graduate high school, have jobs, you know, then they wanna split it again. There's no reason for that to be a major subdivision as the family grows. We're trying to welcome family growth to keep Madison County citizens inside the county, so that we keep our workforce there.
Yeah, but you're
But, you
telling
know,
me I
the-
gotta do a road and all that.
Well, I think one thing you're kind of getting tripped on,
Okay.
up on here is subdivision doesn't mean that they are building a house on it. You know, that 100-acre parcel,
Right.
you may be just giving the land, you are subdividing that parent parcel
Right.
into smaller,
Smaller parcels.
smaller
Right.
parcels.
Cut
Subdivision, every time I hear
pieces into
subdivision, I
little
think
pieces.
house, but this doesn't necessarily mean that the family farm is being divided up amongst all those people and they're gonna build on it right away, which would need an internal road system.
Right.
You know, this is just where 100 acres is being subdivided into 4 25-acre parcels. And sometimes I get that, as I read through this, I gotta make sure and I slow down a little bit to see what is the intent of what's going on here, and that's one that I struggle with personally on this.
That's part of what thank you,
Yeah,
William,
that's-
I did point that out, but that's part of the reason I fiddle with these definitions so much is, we actually, I can't remember which one of the, or zoning or subdivision regs, but there's actually like 2 different definitions: subdivision of property, meaning what you said, and then subdivision with some goofy wording that's like a group of houses with a sign out front.
Yeah, and that's,
You
and
know,
that's where I struggle with
Right.
those 2 things. They-
From a zoning
That's
perspective,
what,
subdivision's one thing, it's cutting one piece into little pieces, period.
To me, that's division. If you take 100 acres and you cut it 4 ways and make 4 25 acre, you've divided the property, you haven't subdivided the property.
Yeah.
A subdivision is a bunch of houses.
Yeah, that's what
To
I'm
me,
saying.
That's,
Yeah.
we might need to work on that
Yeah,
definition,
because
because
We worked with.
Come up with a definition of subdivision, cause I've never seen one.
Because to me,
but when you hear subdivision, you think about houses moving in there. But when you're talking about, just like
Division of
Lee said,
parcels.
dividing the land that's.
So is it not a subdivision till
No,
the houses
no.
are there, all these pipe farms we had
Well,
during the
you know,
recession, not subdivision?
this is what is tricky, just making me think. When you say subdivision, right, you say, I'm looking at subdivide houses out there, realtors out there, they're selling a subdivision. But when you brought a family in there, they're dividing their land up. I don't think they should have to put in roads and everything, because that's going to their family, but you're trying to say they could sell it later. But, I mean, to me, then, isn't there, we can put conditions in there?
Conditions like what?
I mean, because that's,
Like, I can't tell you, you can't sell your land.
well, I mean, not sell their land, but I mean, you know, that if, to me, I don't know, maybe, I gotta sit down and really read this, because to me, it's saying, okay, I bought this family land, this family farm, Now, my kids wanna come back there, maybe come back 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, and it might have been over 5 years before the last one comes back. But you're telling me I have to have a plat with road in there, roadage.
Or major subdivision.
So how do we write an ordinance that makes a difference between what you're doing
Yeah.
and Bruce, who buys your land and cuts it into 6 pieces to sell?
Well, Bruce is, I'm not saying Bruce is fine. Now, if he buys my land, he's not in my family.
Now we're back to
Hold on,
family. I can regulate.
That's what I'm saying, maybe it's that subdivision.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
I think where you getting the discussion, I think going the wrong direction. You cannot write an ordinance for family.
Right.
You gotta write an ordinance for land, houses, or whatever. You can't write it for family.
Right.
What you're saying, I totally agree with, but we can't establish some kind of ordinance in this book that says family.
Right,
Even though we believe that family ought to have a different choice than somebody that just buys up a bunch of land.
Exactly.
But we can't make those kind of rules.
No, I understand that. But
Do you really?
yeah, I do, I really do, but I'm just saying, it brings a family into having to put out money that a subdivision already has that kind of money, because they're gonna be selling those houses, and they already went to the bank and got that kind of money, where a family farmer just wants to give their kids.
So if, going with that mindset and trying to get two together, with what we're trying to create is the major is one more parcel split, so the family can fall into that intermediate
Right.
division of property.
Right.
And not have to worry about that.
Right.
However, if a developer comes in the same way, and he crosses that line within a 5-year period, it kicks him in, so it gives our citizens the chance to keep their families here. And it puts that developer in the hot seat for making sure he times it just right to try and fly in underneath the radar, and what we're trying to do is close that gap down. So what we're doing actually helps situations like what you're talking about with that major subdivision, and putting the intermediate in there is something we're gonna create as a county to what suits us for that intermediate.
Bruce, you had a comment?
Well, I was kind of, maybe going back to kind of what Kenneth was alluding to. Under major subdivision, I understand any subdivision requires construction. That's by definition something over 6 lots. Now, any subdivision, why wouldn't we just say any division of a parent parcel where 6 or more lots are created? Why is the word subdivision in there?
That's just the language. I mean, the term has always been used in zoning and subdivision regs. It's been
I don't know
called.
if you could hear that bus coming.
Yeah, it's a subdivision of property, and yeah, I mean, I get it. Division is the first time you divide it. Subdivision is when you take those pieces and cut them into even smaller pieces, but that's not the way, I mean, it's just.
Is there any reason that it can't be written that way?
Or separate
Well,
family from
I'm
subdivision.
trying to get us a little closer to the norm, not even further into the left field of making up our own words and rules.
I agree with you, but sometimes the norm is not,
We have subdivision.
even though it's the norm, it's not
Yeah,
right.
make a difference.
Maybe we're right and they're wrong.
Well, how about this? When God created the earth,
I know.
that was our first division.
That was the first division.
Yeah, the continent split, and there was the division. Everything since then has been subdivision.
I think to directly answer your question, Mr. Gandy, it's trying to make the verbiage in our
I was
ordinance
throwing a family
It's a
all
legal
in together
description.
with a
I got you.
a little more.
I don't think you can put family in the,
No, I know you can't put family, I'm just saying, I'm not saying put family, but I'm just saying, family farm, and throwing it in with a builder, as they're all together, they have to subdivide their land all together, like, they have to subdivide their land like a builder. The money's not there for the major, what you're asking a family to do, to divide their lots, or divide their
Trying to
land.
get where I'm not having to ask them to do that,
Okay,
trying to give them a bigger window to be able to do that.
okay.
Okay, and just to follow up a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to any subdivision of a parent parcel where 6 or more lots. Now, lots. Why is it called a lot at that point if it's just a piece of land?
Because, your zoning ordinance, a lot of record is the important term. That's a platted lot, it's been approved, it's of record in the clerk's office. And if you look at your definitions in your zoning ordinance, it has both tract and parcel, and they both say mean the same thing as lot of record.
Okay. Tract or parcel.
We're gonna have a
Good
lot of
answer.
that. When those people say, yeah, I wanna, road, rock going down.
Well, I think that, I think that, you know, since we've got to have a public hearing on this, that we've got some homework or some thinking to do away from here as to exactly what, if we want to adopt this as is, or we want to make changes before we make
I
our
agree, there's
recommendation.
definitely, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I found some mistake here, you know, tonight myself in the
For
numbers,
For
So
shame.
we'll,
so yeah.
which is kind of a question on the intermediate subdivision. Any subdivision of a parent parcel where at least 2 but no more than 2 lots.
That's the mistake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It should be where there's a total of at least 3 but no more than 5, meaning the initial lot plus 2, 3, or 4. And I'll get that corrected.
So what, that's what it's getting.
So what is your timeline
Item
on this?
2,
When will this come to
Subdivision,
public hearing?
intermediate subdivision.
Y'all's next public hearing.
It's between
Our next
2 and
meeting.
3.
Okay,
That's y'all's next
that's
meeting.
intermediate.
Public
Because
hearing.
that'll keep it at 5,
Next
not
meeting.
at 6, which will give you a couple of.
15? I remember not talking that.
I tell you, this is the biggest, most complicated piece I've seen of what y'all have been doing so far. And this is a big bite. There's more to be done, but, you know, you're trying to work within this moratorium period and get a skeleton in place here. Certainly open to suggestions, but I don't think we're gonna be able to do everything that you wanna do with the intermediate subdivisions during this moratorium period. We're gonna do the best we can and then have it to work with.
Would you repeat that, but no more than 2 lots?
Yeah,
See
so
what you
intermediate subdivision, the definition there should be any subdivision where at least 3 but no more than 5, parentheses, initial lot plus 2, 3, or 4 new lots are created within a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We'll type it up and send it out tomorrow for that. That way everybody's got it.
Okay.
I guess maybe just the one constant I see in all this, it gives you that 5-year limit on things.
Right.
I see a real benefit of that.
And see, now we sit on the 3-year, but inside of the 3-year, there's also a, doggone, is it 12 or 24 month, inactive, which they don't make progress.
12, I think.
12, okay.
Yeah.
So, mixed into everything that was prior to this, there was at least 4 loopholes that I see in my mind that I won't state on the record right now. What we're trying to do with this is close them all. All together, and the bigger picture on top of the skeleton with just the majors that we have now as well goes as far as road bonds going out between the preliminary and the final plat. This is just a step to get there in the right direction. So before we change something at the heart of the issue, we want to make sure we've got everything to back it up, so that these loopholes that in the past have been exploited are no longer there for the exploitation of the Madison County taxpayer.
Okay, one last question I guess is item 3. This amendment of the subdivision regulation of Madison County, Georgia, to take effect and shall be enforced from and after the date of its adoption. The public welfare demanding it. What's that? I mean, that's just great.
That, yeah, I mean, that's, you see that in every law the General Assembly passes, every ordinance the county passes. It's your effective date. Sometimes you have a delayed effective date, we usually don't with these.
Okay.
I do that right now, I'm not gonna have to go out there and build a road. My family road.
Your family. Courts and roads.
Well, I mean, that's, in all fairness, that's how a lot of the private roads that all counties deal with originally came about.
Yeah.
You know, families used to be bigger, so, you know,
Yeah, but they're not cemented.
they're what?
There are rock roads going down there called Fortson Road.
Right, and every time the Board of Commissioners meets, there's a line of people demanding that their dirt road be paved.
Or the people that live down a private road,
So it's kinda nice to get on the front end of that instead of the back.
with the private roads, say these family ones, or if you go down, AC Carey Road and stuff like that, there's 4 mailboxes all at the front of this private drive.
Right.
And they call for emergency assistance. Let's say it's an ambulance. The ambulance pulls up to the end of the drive and they have no idea what number house it is that's needing assistance inside. It's kinda easy with the fire department, you look for the smoke, you know, down this road where all the mailboxes are, but for all of our emergency services, it becomes an issue, and then the private drives themselves, we've got a $380,000 ambulance going down a private drive that wasn't maintained to county standards. We do $40,000 worth of damage that now has to come out of every taxpayer's pocket because the private road wasn't maintained for public services to be able to access it.
Not picking on any particular place, but Pokey Road, going over just before you get to Hagen's Crossing.
Yes, sir.
What is that? Is that a subdivision? What is it? They got 5 houses, like, one here, one here, one here, one here, one there. I didn't see anything about a subdivision or anything, but it's 5 houses consecutively.
Yep.
I don't even know if they can half apart.
It started out as 2 parcels neighboring each other. One was big enough to do one division without a rezone. The other was big enough to have, or, you know, to divide without needing a rezone. The other could be divided into 3 parcels without a rezone. They had the road frontage and they popped them in there. So they essentially fit 5 houses on 2 parcels, and let's say they all had 2 kids, they filled the classroom, or at least half the classroom with children. And I only found out about the one in question when they were building them, when they did the construction and they got mud in the road. That's the only reason I found them.
I'm just curious as to what that was. I mean,
That's some of those.
it looks like subdivision to me.
Question.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a loophole, that's just, I mean,
Well, yeah, it's a way we can get in, or the way
I mean,
they
the
got
only
in
thing
the
we
house.
can do is deal with lots of record and then what happens if people start dividing them. And so in some situations, you'll say, well, by God, I think that one split should have been a major subdivision, and then others will say, but that was just 6 splits for 6 children, that shouldn't be a major subdivision, you know, it's, you have to make a rule somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're gonna run into.
All right, anything else, Tracy?
Sir, that's it.
You guys?
Nothing for me?
Sure.
So sure.
Got a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
We're in 5 seconds, we're adjourned.
Madison Lee.
Yeah,
Ma'am.
yeah, it needs to be thought about. That's why I said, we didn't go
Only
think
if
about
they, have a lot of.
Better special consideration.
That was pretty odd.
You'd have to have.
Three per lot is.
Yeah, well,
West Chris Farley comes and parks the van down by the.
We'll figure out another way of saying it right. I understand, but, when you say family's like, you want family in this regulation, and you can't put it in, you can't use that word.
Right, I know.
So,
No, I wouldn't use that word, but I'm just saying.
you gotta present it a different,
Catch on this one.
a different way. I don't want you to, I don't have an answer now.
Well, I don't
Mean
think
a
you
health and
call it, I'm just saying.
standards
they should
moving to the county,
separate from
and it can't have solid.
what they're saying, calling the
wireless.
Yeah.
So somebody have an older one.
I agree with you.
I meant no, your,
But yet,
former,
it's like that
Passes the helps.
parcel I just
it's
brought up.
only 11.
When you go from five houses over there, that might be, I don't know.
That's, he didn't know you
That's
were,
something,
but I
that's
mean,
something we
it was one
don't
of those
know.
that just, holy moly, honey, when it.
It's something we really can't take into consideration.
Yeah. Must have come out.
I think you should, but you did.
I got him, yeah, positive, yeah, that's the one I gotta earn my keep.
Oh, thank you so much.
Watch it, put a little.
Yeah.
You know what the old phone is?
Oh, you used to send out
How much anything costs this thing?
Health and safety, and it doesn't have
Electronic.
solid.
did you do that? You didn't do that, did you?
And then they just
Did
get
it,
a.
we are having so
Permit
many,
for coming into the county from us.
they just now have
With other county
these,
Your leg is
so
better.
now that we have a direct link up
All right,
to,
that's at the end of the day, look how swollen that
you
thing is.
Oh,
can just,
yeah.
in which you could
You don't
just
want
click
questions?
the link that I sent, and it'll
Yeah.
take you to the agenda.
They said, go to it, go to it.
Okay,
So
so I
this
can grab that link.
Yes,
Go
sir.
to our webpage.
Uh-huh, and then you pull up that agenda, cause I
Push
posted,
it a little
and
bit
you
at a
can just
time.
see everything I would have needed.
Cause I appreciate you, man, you gotta do both sides, and I never always get it.
And I wish, and anything, you can go through and it show me every single thing that instead of having to email you 4 or 5 times to get it to go through. But now, do you want me to do it?
No, I can handle it.
Okay, well, let me know if you have any problems.
Before it came into the county, so that when it's traveling down the road.
Well, Bruce?
It doesn't
Yes,
get across, and now we got it. You know,
Everybody?
Get past gotchas and get to, well, just how are we going to fix this so we don't have these problems going forward? That's kind of why I get this kind of one. Yes, sir, thank you, William. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I wanted
Man,
to
right
find
over there, look
So
at
they're
that.
almost.
I got one more to ask you.
I was just looking over there.
Yes, sir.
But I noticed when I got
Terry
back.
Collins,
Yeah, you were there.
All right, so he's got the A1, conforming A1.
Yeah.
There's this little teardrop piece,
Oh.
3-something acres, away from the main.